member who has the Zoom account and under myself so I can actually hear something.
Great. I don't see you, but it could be the way that I have the video.
I have it off. You can
Okay,
see me
I can see.
right
There, I
here.
see you.
Yep.
And also, this is being recorded. You might want to pause it because I've just been on here being silent since I
Oh
logged out.
yeah. Yeah, I'll just figure I'll just let it run. I can edit it later.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, there's going to be about 7 minutes of. Okay, two things that I really love, or one thing actually. One is, could you make me co-host so that I can control breakouts a little bit?
Um, I'm
What you
not
do
that
is you
familiar.
go into, it's totally okay. If you go into participants, you should have on the bottom of your screen, one of the things that you can click on is participants, and it'll bring up a list of participants, which is just us
Okay.
right now.
Get a move around here. Okay. Okay.
That hard to find? I can try and give some more specific directions.
Well, trying to do this remotely is probably not the
Yeah, it's
swiftest
awkward.
idea.
It's awkward.
I can see participants, and I have invite
Okay, so if you
public.
can see the little list of participants and I'm in there, then there's like three little dots to the side of my name. And one
Okay.
of those is to make me co-host.
Okay, let me see here. Ah, there we go. Give me a second.
You take your time.
There you go.
I did usually I see a little bit of a of a notification, but I'm trying to use two monitors, and it's going to be really awkward because if I'm going back and forth between sharing the screen and of the slides and the Google slides, it's just going to be a lot of finagling. So we'll have to see how that. There's no really super smooth way to do it, so that's okay. Um,
Would you want me to make you just the host
No,
or
no, no. That's not an issue you could fix. That really has to do with my
okay.
capacities on this side. I saw Paul flicker on. Maybe.
Yeah, I see.
Who are joining? It's good to have you here.
Hello, how are you?
Doing okay. How about you?
Good.
It keeps on kind of going between people, and I'm guessing that means people are turning their video off.
Yes,
Okay.
I think that's it.
Okay. Well, anyway, whether you're on video or off video, glad to have you here. And we'll just be waiting a couple more minutes, I think. When other folks get on, they'll be able to give a sense of whether this is the group that we anticipated and when we should start getting going. Okay. Whoops.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm very fine, thank you. How are you?
Doing okay. Good to have you here. Did you get can you get into did you get into the Google Slides?
There were only two.
Right, there's a whole bunch now.
Oh,
But that
well,
link is going to be useful. Anybody who's on, I just today dumped all the other slides in there. If I put them all on, then people might get into them and delete some stuff by accident. So I wait until the last minute to
okay.
populate them, but that
But,
link is still useful.
but
So
can I use it simultaneously with this screen?
you can't, you're going to need to flip between the screens, right? So when you're in the Google Slides, you're not going to be able to see us. So
Darn.
I know. And I'm sitting here with two monitors and it doesn't make it any
Oh,
easier. It's all just a mess. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening,
all of the
whatever time
above.
zone we're in. Pennsylvania's presumably.
Where are you, Susan?
I'm in Pittsburgh. So it's just that when I do my morning walk is when I usually see people. And so I've learned to say good morning and the whole day
Yeah.
becomes good morning.
Well, it's morning someplace.
It absolutely is.
Probably
So
in Japan.
I'm gonna grab that link and throw it into chat. But the thing is that that every person who comes in will only get the chat from uh, when they're in the Zoom. So I'll have to keep on dropping it in. Ward, you'll have a sense of how many people we should be expecting tonight.
A sense, yeah. This is not everybody, I can promise you.
Yeah.
So while we're watching the slides, can we hear audio and
Absolutely. The
okay.
audio from Zoom will be coming. Yeah. So
Good.
it's just you won't be able to see everybody's face, but other than that.
Yeah, I haven't done this before, so this
Yeah, so
is very exciting.
it is super exciting. Okay, so if you want that link in chat, it's in chat. It's also in the emails that have been coming out to get people ready for this session.
So let's see.
I'm going to try it now. See what happens.
Excellent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Got it.
there's action in there.
I do hear you.
Excellent. Perfect. And now if you can get back to Zoom, then
Let's just
you're
minimize.
sitting pretty.
Okay.
The thing is we're gonna have it's and I'll mention this to everybody, but we're gonna it's good for you whenever we're in the slides for you to actually do what you just did. I'm gonna try and share those slides in here so that the recording will capture it. But you shouldn't be looking at it in here because you can't edit it when when I'm sharing my screen on Zoom. Like it'll look like the same thing, but you can only edit it when you're in that page with the Google Slides. So that's going to be visually a little bit confusing, but we'll negotiate. And for the first one, I'm decided I'm not going to share it because I don't think we'll need to, and that'll cut down the number of times we're going back and forth.
So
Yeah.
when I'm watching the screen with everybody's faces, do I go back and forth by hitting the chat link or just minimize my
No,
Zoom
once
window?
it's up, it's just going to be there.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're going to be opening it again and again, which is not the end of the world, but it's also not necessary. So you're just gonna, it's just kind of like having tabs, right? You're just gonna go between tabs on your screen.
Yeah, well, that didn't work unless I.
This is perfect that you're experimenting with it now. You can probably see, for me, like it's one of my browser tabs, right? So if you go back to your browser, I'm using Chrome, so I just go back to the Chrome button on the bottom of my screen, and that'll bring me back to the slides, the Google Slides.
Yes, okay.
So I'm seeing
Okay.
faces of deep concentration. I hope that means everything is working okay. I'm seeing now a little bit of
I'm
some
totally
smiles.
lost. I'm totally
Excellent.
lost. I don't know if anybody else is.
This is perfect timing for you to be lost. This is the right moment for you to be lost. So Theodore, do you have the link? So that's the first step. Do you have the link?
Where is the link? No, I
It's
don't
in
know where it is.
It's no trouble. It's in those emails that you got. And I can also put it in chat if that's easier.
I can look in the emails I got from
Okay.
Andrea.
Exactly. And there's one that came out even today.
Right. Well, I have another computer, so it's just better if I look on another computer, correct?
That's totally fine.
That's right behind me. So that way, instead of going back and forth. All right, so, all right,
So
all
Susan,
right.
can I put the slides on my iPhone?
That I wouldn't because like if we're working with two sets of slides, I would put Zoom on your iPhone if I'm going to put anything on your iPhone.
Got it.
Because the slides you're going to want to edit, and I don't know how to coach you through editing on an iPhone.
Got it. Okay.
So,
All right. Thank you.
no worries. Good question. Theodore, how's it? Do you see the slides, the Google slides now?
I do not, so.
Okay, so
I,
have you got the
the one
link from
sent
that email?
today has one picture. Scenario planning, mapping the unknown, okay? And,
So if you can scroll, so you'll see, yep. So do you see something that says like PDA scenario planning at the top when you're looking at that? Or like you're still in the email, is that right?
right, where do you want me to go?
Okay, so like I'm looking at the one that says reminder, training information and link, right? And that
Yes,
came out today. So if you go down, you'll see the Zoom meeting. And then if you keep on scrolling down between those two, after those two Zoom links, you'll see that email from Andrea. It says, here's a link to the deck we'll be using, and that's hypertext. And that's what you're going to click on.
oh, here's the link, yeah. To
Okay, and
the,
that'll bring you to the Google Slides. But again, as I've been telling folks, you're not going to be able to see Zoom and the Google Slides on the same simultaneously unless you have your monitor set up to do that because it's basically it's two different apps.
Hmm.
So you're going to go back and forth.
So I see the slides. What else am I not going to be able to see?
No, you can see the slides. That's great. When on Zoom, I'm going to be sharing my PowerPoint slides. But when
I
we
see.
are writing stuff, I'm going to have you go to those Google Slides. So what we need to just be able to do is kind of go back and forth between seeing the Zoom and seeing the Google Slides. The Google Slides is what we're going to be typing into.
And so the Google Slides are the ones that says, here's the link. Is that what?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right.
Sounds like you're in business. Is anybody else? This is the moment to you're not alone if
Is
you're
the
having
Google
trouble.
Slides the one that says PDA scenario planning?
Exactly. And then it
Okay.
has two slides that are kind of like play with the slides. And then after that are the slides that we'll be using.
Okay.
Real quick, I see a Craig's iPhone. Is that Craig McKenzie?
Yeah, that's me. I'm driving home.
Okay. All righty. And I have a bit of a feel. We have quite a few people who said they would be on who aren't. There's Lauren. And there's Alyssa. And Mike Korch just joined us. See Natalie. I think that's Natalie Monaco, correct? She put a message in chat. So I think that's her.
Hi, yes, it's me. Hi, everyone.
Hello, Natalie.
All righty.
I think,
Paul, you're on twice. We are still missing 4 SFC people who said they would be on and 1 staff person. I don't see Zofia. And I saw her.
Sophia is on her way. She had to re-download Zoom.
Okay. Then we're missing Lauren Yap, John Polowitz, Cindy Schuler, and Allison King at the moment.
So this is again our great moment to work out all the kinks in technology. So if anyone else is having issues kind of getting open the Google Slides or moving around in the Google Slides or typing in the Google Slides or going back and forth between Zoom and Google Slides, this is a moment for us to figure that out. And Nat, since you're driving, we're not going to be expecting you to put anything in the Google Slides, but when you're in a small group, you can ask other people to type things in for you if you can join a small group from the car. If not, your priority is driving safely.
Hi, this is Neela Babbage. I may not be able to participate in slides. My husband's traveling, and I have my son at hockey practice, and I have my 4-year-old daughter in tow. So I'm going to do my best to listen in and participate, but I may not be able to type it, depending on where we are in our evening.
Totally.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Again, like, well, especially when we're in groups, like if you can't type, like if you can't get the slides and you have an idea and you want to put it in chat, I can try and put it in the slides for you. Or if you just can't do that, you can also like speak and we can try and type it in for you, or you can decide you're just going to listen. All those are good options for you.
Okay.
And you are coming through a little choppy, but I recognize that you got a lot going on. So just to let you know. And just, Ward, I'm just going to look to you to give me the high sign when you think we should actually get going.
I'm going to text a couple of folks that haven't shown up that I have numbers for, but I would say it's 6:11. I would go ahead and get started.
Okay, I'm going to drop this link into chat one more time. Ward, if you see people, I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff. So if you see people come in, or anybody for that matter, if you see new people come in and you're thinking they may not have that link and you don't want to interrupt, then you can also just copy and repaste that link into chat, and that will help us let them join when they're able. So it's good to be with you all. Thank you so much for making time tonight to do this training. I'm excited to be with you. I think that this is an interesting tool, and I'm hoping that we all get the chance to really explore it. My intentions for today are to allow you to explore the tool that in a way that will help you work with your own teams to work, to spread this out. So the idea is that not just that you have exposure to it yourself, but that you will understand it well enough to bring it to your own teams and use it nimbly. So that's what be thinking about that. You'll be having experiences with the tool yourself, but keep in the back of your mind, like, what do I need to know in order to use this at home, at wherever home is, and make sure you're asking questions about that too, because that's what I'd love to give to you tonight. And as you know, we will be also having another session later where we will do some scenario planning with those questions that you have around your future. But tonight we're just really exploring the model. So we're not going to use an example that's highly relevant because we want to focus on the process. So we're going to use kind of a generic, easy example to allow us to practice. So that's one thing that I will say as far as orientation. Another one is that we're trying to make, as you also saw in the email, we're trying to make this training accessible to people who weren't able to be here tonight. And that's tough because we're doing a lot of participatory techniques. So I'm going to try and share into Zoom a lot of what we're doing, even if I'm sharing into Zoom the same Google Slides that we're actually working on. That will be visually confusing. I don't want you to say, I can't edit this because it's showing up in Zoom, right? You have to going to switch to the Zoom, to the Google Slides when you want to actually write in those slides. I'm going to be trying to do that. And that will also mean that there's going to be some back and forth because then I need to stop sharing and reshare a different screen. So there's just going to be a little bit of choppiness around sharing, and that's to be expected. I just wanted to kind of put that out there. There's no real way to get around that tonight. Another thing is, and I don't think this is going to be a problem, that I do have a hard stop at 8. So I think we'll have time for questions before 8 o'clock, but we will definitely be ending at 8.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Is the purpose of this collaborative documentation essentially to eliminate a secretary for having a meeting?
No, you mean the Google Slides?
Yeah. Well,
no,
when you're editing a document or doing something, you're doing
right. Yeah.
once.
No, it's like we're working through it. We're going to actually kind of work through scenario planning. So it's going to give you kind of hands-on experience as opposed to just watching it.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah, so yeah, we wouldn't want a secretary to do it. We want to actually do it ourselves. But it's a good question. Please do exactly what Carrie did and just unmute yourself and ask questions whenever you have them. That's really useful for me. There's a lot that I'm going to be looking at, and I may not be able to see your body language, or if if your video is off, then I absolutely won't be able to see if you have questions. So I encourage you to do just that, and that will be really helpful for me. I did send out a handout that came out in that same email that had the reminder. Again, there's a lot to look at between all the computer, but I just want you to know you don't have to have that printed out, or we're not going to be actually referring to that. But I wanted to let you know that some of the information we're going to be covering tonight is also in that handout. So just that's a resource for you as we go forward. All right. So now I'm going to start sharing the the PowerPoint slides. And let's see if I can do this. So we're going to go to slideshow. Hold on just a second. From beginning. All right. So let's talk about what scenario planning actually is for starters. So I want to differentiate it from other types of planning paths. There's a lot of different ways that people can plan. So business planning, and if you're doing a business plan, and many of you probably have been involved in business plans, you'll take a look at the environmental data, at what's going on in trends and revenues and expenses, what's changing in the environment. And then you'll take a look at your preferred future in a business plan, and you'll really focus on explaining how the organization is going to operate given those sources of revenue and expenses and that sort of thing. So it's obviously highly focused on the financial aspects, and it's looking at a preferred future. Then there's regular old strategic planning. It's similar. It collects data from the environment. It includes financial information, but it mostly focuses on operational as opposed to largely on the financial picture. It sets out an ideal path forward, and it gives goals to advance the mission in that ideal path forward. So those are valid and good ways to approach the future. Scenario planning is different from those because it has instead of looking at a preferred direction and mapping it out either in an operational or a financial way, it really is writing stories of possibilities. You don't know what the future is going to look like. Both business planning and strategic planning are kind of talking about what they think is within their control. Like, here's what we think we can do. Here's how we think we can get there. Scenario planning is really operating largely outside of that area of control. This is how we're going to plan when we have things coming at us that we can't control. So it's writing a different kind of story. One really significant time when scenarios were used was in post-apartheid South Africa. And there was a planning group that developed several scenarios for what could happen as the country was transitioning out of apartheid. And those are called the Montvleur scenarios. And they all had bird themes for whatever reason. One of them was Icarus, where they saw the power really shifting to the African National Conference very rapidly, and the aspiration was really high, and then hopes would be dashed because it was just too much of a transition. One was the lame duck, which was, one was the ostrich, which was, again, as you can imagine, sort of not transitioning power very effectively, and so having that power be stuck in between these two places. And then one of them was also Flight of the Flamingos, which was that kind of slowly everyone's rising together. So these scenarios became visual stories and metaphors that the country really used and was thinking about, what are we heading towards? What is it looking like? What are the dangers of each of these approaches? And so it was a way to kind of say, oh, wait, are we going here or there? And that was a time when this was happening. So that may give you some sense of what makes scenario planning a very different kind of tool. And I was talking about the places where we can control. This is in your handout if you ever felt you needed it. But generally, planning is done from the inside out. So organizations look at what they can control, your partners, your customers, those sorts of elements. The middle ring are things that you can influence, maybe competitors or that sort of thing. And the farthest ring out are geopolitics, technology changes that are influencing you. And planners, again, they like to move from the inside, the things that they can control. But when things are changing rapidly in the external world, the realm of control may feel very narrow and it kind of constraining to try and work within that control. So this is a way for us to think with a planning mind, even if it feels like the areas that we control are not very large. Okay, so our agenda tonight is we're going to walk through a scenario planning process together. We're going to identify the vectors and develop scenarios, harvest information, and locate trigger points. These are 4 of the most significant elements of a scenario planning process. And we're going to start with the first one. So identifying the vectors, or really seeing what the landscape is. So what I'd like you to do now is the first opportunity for us to move to the Google Slides. So I'd like you to move there and let's see if we can go down to, someone's already on slide number 3 and practicing typing in there. I'm going to see if as many as possible of us can move down to slide number 3. It's a slide that says, what's on our minds? Okay. So I'm just going to pause for a little while we move down there. Most people are here. There's just a few that are still on slide number 1. If you're having any trouble, just unmute yourself and let me know. But basically, this is an opportunity. I'm going to ask you to note down what's on your mind right now in the world as far as your own context. So it could be these are unknowns that you're concerned about. It could be political, legislative, economic, cultural, social, technological, within your field. So the person who wrote this is very confusing. Talk to me. Help me understand what would make this make more sense to you. Unmute and let me know. Okay. Got lots of good comments here.
Who's doing the typing here?
Everybody, you can put your cursor on there and type in. So
Oh.
we've got any number of concerns that are popping up for y'all. I had not anticipated that some of these would be on your minds, but it's good to know what's on your minds. So yeah, when I'm talking about what's on our minds, it's pretty much like unknowns that you are concerned about. What is unknown and what is what is a concern for you? So in this and if you're listening to the recording, then I'll just say that people are writing down all sorts of stuff ranging from the Epstein files to lack of dental staff in rural parts of the country. So and because we're running out of space, I just added another slide. So slide number 4 is also, I'm going to erase the comments that are in here and give you a little bit more space.
How do we know who's typing?
You don't. That's there. It's anonymous.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is that a good thing or not a good thing?
Well, it's really becoming interesting, I have to say. Okay, so we have some concerns about the Eagles. All right, so we've got a number of concerns right now. And again, if you're running out of space on slide number 3, I've created some more space on slide number 4 for you. Okay, so like what's a trusted news source is what we're doing. Reaching out to our target audience is coming up there. Amalgam ban, is that real? I'm just concerned about the work that's coming up, just them personally. Threat of nuclear war. Okay. All right, so I'm going to give you just another minute to we got a dialogue going on about Walter Cronkite. Right, so this is learning for us how we would do this. So the first thing is to kind of do a dump. And of course, if you're doing scenario planning, you might have a tight focus, right? You might say, what's really on our minds around our dental practice? You might decide to restrict it to that as opposed to a more general global focus, right? As we seem to be capturing today. But in any event, so it's just you're going to note down what concerns you have. And again, think about like one of the things Word was really good at sending me a lot of background information, and I was taking a look at that before this session, and it really pointed out to me that there's a lot of stuff that you have excellent information on, right? You have really excellent quarterly information about economic trends and how people are feeling. And so they may be concerns, but they're not unknowns, right? But there's a difference between those concerns and unknowns because you actually have good data on those things. So you're wanting to know, what am I simultaneously concerned about? And also, I don't know about. I don't have good data on this, or I don't know where to get the data, or it's impossible for us to get data. Some of these questions about like, will we ever have a trusted news source again? Like that's really hard to get data on that. That's exactly what we're talking about. That's a really unclear thing for the world, right? We're not going to be able to know that. So that's important for us to know. I also want to mention here that our minds will naturally, because this has helped us biologically, go to the things that cause us pain, right? Unknowns can also include good things, right? So it's useful in this exercise to, once you've dumped out all the stuff you're really concerned about, to identify any potential positive things that we're not following closely because we're not really, they're not going to necessarily hurt us, but they could be really interesting things for the long haul. So, for example, during COVID, one of the things that happened was air pollution decreased significantly in a lot of parts of the world. And so, like, that's an interesting thing, right? Like, just maybe you don't spend a lot of time thinking about it, but like, how might this impact or something that's good for me as opposed to just bad for me? So that is something to watch out for. Okay, so we have a lot of good things that are on our minds. And then the next thing we're going to do, once we've kind of done this dump, is we're kind of try in any exercise scenario, and well, this is one way of doing scenario planning, but in this type of way of doing scenario planning, we want to get two unknowns that feel really important. And there's different elements of those. And so I'm going to have you take a look at slide number 5. And if you're not with us, then I will say that this is just a table. And then on the columns, there's one for the issues, and on the other columns it says risk, likelihood, impact, and data. This is another piece that I put onto your handout So we want to evaluate some of these things that we've put down in slides 3 and 4 and say, is this a high, medium, or low level of risk? Is this a high, medium, or low likelihood that this is actually going to play out? So I noticed that someone has highlighted the whole thing. Be careful when you do that so you don't hit delete. So we have high level of, is it risk? Is it going to be high level or this is perfect? Someone's already transferred to nuclear war. So this person, an anonymous goose, is estimating that there's a medium risk of nuclear war. So this is great. Whoever's doing that, keep doing it. What do you think is the likelihood that this risk will play out? High, medium, or low? That we're going to have nuclear war. Okay, so this person is thinking low likelihood. And then what if this risk plays out? Is it high, medium, or low impact? Yeah, I would agree. This is massive impact. If we do have a nuclear war, that's going to be a really big impact. And then the last one, this that I gave you, this availability of data. It's like, how much data do we actually have where we could maybe estimate this? Like, what kind of data is available on the possibility of nuclear war? Okay, the goose says high. Okay, so great. We're going to say that well, we have the doomsday clock, right? So that's at how many seconds to midnight. So that's one, and that's based on something, right? So we have some availability of data for that. So this is exactly what we're doing. So now the ferret is going in and putting something else in there. So actually just a ferret, if you got a question, you can just unmute and ask unless you feel really shy. But what I want to keep this table for is for our actual evaluation of these elements here.
Sorry,
So
I didn't want to interrupt you.
no, go for it. I totally want you to.
So what's the difference between risk and likelihood?
Yeah, so how do I explain? So risk has to do with how much okay, I'm going to try and articulate this well. So likelihood we understand is oh, rats, you really asked a good question. It was very clear in my mind, and now I'm like, how would I distinguish that? Yeah, I'm going to have to come back to you on that. It's a really excellent question. It was clear to me when I typed this out, but right now in this moment, it's not feeling as clear. So anyway,
Wouldn't likelihood be the possibility of something happening?
right. I think that's true. And then like, how did I differentiate that from level of risk? I feel like severity is what I was thinking of risk, but that's kind of correlated with impact. So anyway, I'll need to come back to you on that. It's a really good question. Does anyone else, sorry that I wasn't more clear on that. Does anyone else have one they want to sort of lift from slides 3 and 4 and put into the slide 5 and sort of let's walk through an evaluation of it? This is exactly what we want to be doing. Let's take one that like maybe we could take, oh, here we go. Hamster is gonna help us out. Okay, we've got a couple people working on this here. Okay, so we have unbiased news, and this person has made an evaluation that the risk is medium, likelihood is low. Presumably this is, are we ever going to have an unbiased news source? And so the risk of that is like medium, the likelihood is low, the impact is high, and the data is not great. All right. So in a session that we'd be doing together, we wouldn't just have one person sort of fill this out, right? We'd be having a discussion. Maybe all of us would fill it out, and then we'd see where our differences were, and we'd sort of see, well, what's your evidence that this is high or this is low? And you'd talk it out a little bit. But this is the process that you'd use to narrow down. So if we were going to take a look at this, we want to pick, because of just what we've done so far, this is great. Failing to meet our members' needs, the risk is medium, likelihood is medium, impact is high, not clear on the data. So based on what we have here right now, what we'd say is, okay, maybe for our scenario, you can do any number of scenario plans, right? So we're just going to pick 2. We would want to pick maybe this one, failing to meet our members' needs, because it feels like it's more significant. The risk, likelihood, and impact is a little bit higher than the other ones we had here. Okay.
Yeah, Susan, you said that you can write these things down, then you can talk about it, but are we talking when we're on these documents or just writing?
Well, see, I'm right now, because we're just taking a look at this tool, we're not going to spend the time to talk about it. But if you're bringing this to your own teams, that's when you're going to talk about it. Does that make sense, Carrie?
No.
Okay.
When you say talk, do you mean like what we're doing right now or writing things down back and forth?
Well, okay, let's imagine that you're doing this with your team at home. Then you would have identified things that are concerns, and you're going to drop them into this table. And then you're going to say, Mary, what did you have on your table? Or like, John, what did you have on your table? How do we come to a consensus position on whether this is high risk or high likelihood? Does that make sense?
Well, no, the question that I'm driving at is, do we need to do a Zoom meeting in collaboration with this Google Documents or whatever it's called? I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. So if you're
We're
on Zoom,
talking
yeah,
right now. We're talking.
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, if you're working with your team on Zoom, then yes, you would need to have it be a Zoom meeting. Yes.
But if we're just doing these documents, everything is written. Nobody's speaking out loud.
That's correct, because right now we're kind of playing with it. Like it's not going to help us to talk about these things because they're all over the place. Like if we're going to be like doing a scenario with like Eagle scores in one quadrant and fluoride in another, it's just not going to make a lot of sense, right? So, but when you're doing it at home, you're really going to be zooming in on like, okay, what's the danger to our practice, right? That's going to be your focus.
So we're just
Yeah, there's no
practicing now.
conversation going on.
That's correct. We're not. Do you get why?
That's what I was asking. Is there a conversation going on simultaneously, like what we're doing right now? That's not going to be the case. Everything is going to be written silently.
No, I think that what I would do if we were really working, and we're going to do later, is we'd be talking this through as we're going. We would definitely be having a conversation. So such a good question, because you would be definitely talking this through. Right now, this is a way for us to all see each other's thoughts. So, but we'd be talking it through. In fact, I probably wouldn't have everybody be writing at the same time if we're doing this for real. It's just too confusing, right? But we're just kind of making sure we understand how to do this kind of ranking once we get our vectors. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question, Carrie? Yeah,
You're muted,
you're
Carrie.
not a.
Yeah, the answer is yes.
Thank you. Okay, good. All right. Anybody else with questions at this point? Does this make sense as far as what we're doing, what we're playing with? I can see a few of your faces, and I'm not seeing nods or shake, confirm or deny. Okay, Nick's giving me a thumbs up, so I'm gonna have to. Okay, awesome. Okay, good to know. All right. So let's say that this is the way that we're gonna know what we should select. All right. Now back on Zoom. You can see my slide if you want to. So once we have identified what feels really risky, what feels likely, what has a high impact, where do we not have data that we can evaluate some other way? Those are the things that we're going to be looking for. What really emerges as things that were outside of our control and really important. Then we are going to pick those two of them, and we're going to put them together and develop scenarios. We're going to describe the way that those two vectors can influence us from many angles. I'll get a little bit more into that in a minute, but before I describe how that next step in the process works, I just want to mention that this is a really good opportunity, perhaps to Carrie's point, that you want to bring into the room people who have different perspectives on it, right? So if I was a regular nonprofit and I had a building and I had people out in the field, I'd want to make sure I had someone from finance in the room. I'd want to make sure I had someone who's doing maintenance in the room. I'd want to make sure I had some field staff in the room, because they all have perspectives on the problem that I might not have in my role. Whatever it is, whatever my role is, there's going to be people who can speak to technology or whatever it is that I don't have those perspectives. So this is an exercise in which it's really useful to get a variety of people together who have different perspectives on the world. and to do this exercise with all of those people present. So the next thing we're going to do together, and is we are going to be developing some scenarios. Oh dear, I'm afraid somebody has been erasing a lot of the slides. Okay, don't worry. So what happens when, oh, you know what? Somebody's just been adding. This is good news. Okay, someone's been adding slides, I think. I'm going to just, perfect. I'm just going to erase the extra slides. Here we go. Ah, beautiful. Okay, but I do have a backup in case we need to. So if you were doing something that was like insert slide, then that's something to watch out for. Okay, but don't worry. So I'm going to now share, I'm going to share the Google Slides for a minute. We're going to talk through it. She says with a smile. Okay. Okay. So let's take a look at this. You guys can you see my Google Slides? You can't, can you? You can? Great. Okay, so this is also in your Google Slides, slide 6, if you'd rather look at it that way. So we have let's leave aside everything we thought of. That was your way of understanding how you'd generate vectors and how you'd identify your top risks. We're going to move to a very a personal sort of example here, a very simple example, so we won't get distracted. So in this particular scenario, whoever's doing this has two big vectors that could happen in their life. They could get a new job that takes them out of the state, and they could have a new child in their family. So those are the two very high impact things that could be part of their life. So this one is a personal one, so it's not going to be quite as relevant to talk about clients or program participants, but they can still think about funding and finance and facilities and technology and some other things that might impact. So there are 4 quadrants that we're going to be discussing or developing. Some people will be talking about what happens in this top left-hand quadrant where there is no new child, but there is a new job, right? Down below in this lower left-hand quadrant, there's no new child and no new job. So you understand each one has a different kind of combination of those two vectors. Does that much make sense? Understand how we're combining that? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you into breakout rooms. If you are actually able to type in the Google Doc, would you put your video on so that I can know I don't want to put a bunch of people into a breakout who are all in their cars or something. That would be really awkward. I'm going to create 4 breakout rooms. And watch your number. When you go into a breakout room, watch and see if you are breakout room number 1, 2, 3, or 4. Once you've gotten into the breakout room, go back and look at those Google Slides. Okay? If you're in group 1, you're assigned that top left quadrant. If you're number 2, the top right quadrant. So you'll be working on slides, you'll be working on slides 7 through 10. Each of your groups will have 1 slide to type in. Okay, so you're going to get a breakout room. You're going to go into that breakout room. You're going to talk about the quadrant that you've been assigned, and you're going to take some notes. I want you to consider in that breakout room all the things that you might need to do from as many different angles, again, financial, physical, health-wise, whatever you can think of, that you might need to do if you're in that quadrant. And I also want you to name your quadrant, okay? So if you have no new child and no new job, you might call it something like business as usual. If you have a new child and a new job, you might say hell breaks loose or something, but it's gonna have like that sort of a feel to it. So just like the Montfleur scenarios, it's helpful to kind of have a name for the scenario so that we can think about it. So that's what I'm asking. I'm gonna send you into these breakout rooms. You're gonna each have a slide to take notes on. You can call me in if you don't know which quadrant you're in, but it's gonna be on that slide. Just look at the number of your breakout room. And then I'm going to give you 15 minutes to do that discussion. This is a little complicated. Is everybody clear on what we're doing in the next 15 minutes?
Where do we look to find out what
No,
breakout room we're in?
It's when I send you into breakout rooms, you're going to say like joining room 1 or something is going to be on your invitation. And that's how you're going to get your
On our,
your
the
signal.
invitation will come on our Google Slides or on the Zoom?
On the Zoom. You're going to need to join in the breakout rooms on Zoom. That's a good question, Michael. I saw another hand. I feel like someone else had a hand.
yeah, is the breakout room, is this groups of people or you individual?
No, there'll be groups of people together in the breakout room. Yep. So you'll talk with those other people about what you might want to think about doing if you end up in that sort of scenario. Good questions.
So are we gonna type on a slide?
Yeah,
We
each
just
of
gonna
the
talk?
rooms is gonna, nope, you're gonna both be talking, and then you're gonna take some notes on your slide, on this corresponding slide. Does that make sense? You can see how those slides are arranged?
Yes,
Great,
and,
super.
okay.
Yeah, those are really good questions. I want to make sure there's no confusion before I send you off into breakout. So any other
Susan, am I
questions? Yeah,
clear this breakout group 1 is on slide 7, 2 is slide 8, 3 is
Let me
slide
take a
9,
peek.
4 is slide 10, right?
hold on a second. Let me just make sure. Group 4, Laura.
Where did you get that information? Where?
Looking
Yep.
at the Google Slides.
If you just look at the,
He just scrolled down the Google Slides, Ted.
yep, exactly. Group 1 is slide 7. Group
2
2,
is 8,
slide
Oh.
8.
3 is 9.
Group 1, top of one. Okay, I got it.
You got it?
Wow. Well, I think so.
Okay. And like, here's another thing. If you're not using breakout rooms a lot, you can hit like ask for help in the breakout room and I can come and join you. Or I might pop into your breakout room just to see how it's going. I'm going to be looking to see how you guys are typing, if you guys are there. Like, I can see on the Google Slides who's gone into what group. So if you're having trouble, I'm going to try and troubleshoot it for you. And I'll see if you need more than 15 minutes, that's totally okay too. We'll see how you're doing once you're there. Any other questions before I open the breakout groups?
So Susan, you're going to assign randomly people to each group.
That's correct.
You haven't done that yet.
I haven't. And because it's automatic, it may be that there's people who are driving or something, and and then in that case, just holler and I'll try and divvy it up a little bit better. Okay. Any other questions before I open the breakouts? Okay, let's give it a shot. Okay, so again, your marching orders are go into these groups, figure out which quadrant you're talking about. All right, it's all the information is there. Have a discussion about what you would want to do if you found yourself in that future, what that future is called. Okay, that's your job in the next 15 minutes. I'm going to open up these breakout rooms. And if you can't go into a breakout room for some reason, I can move you physically into your breakout room. So let me know if that's being challenging for you. So far, we got a good number of people in each. Theodore, would you like help being moved into your breakout? Do you see the little click on button? Ah, you got it.
I got sent back to the main one, but I was in group 4.
Okay, Mitchell, I will put you back. Okay, here's the deal. I'm gonna have to move you to another room and then back into group 4, okay? So just hold your horses. I'm gonna move you to group 3 and then to group 4 immediately, okay?
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, hold on a second. Anybody else need help? Mitchell, I don't know what's going on. Are you back with me?
Back with you, yeah.
I don't know what's going on. Are you seeing a little thing that you can click on?
No.
That's probably the issue. Well, I don't know what to do. I'm gonna try it one more time, but the idea is that you'll see like a little invitation pop up on your screen, and then you need to click on that in order to get into your room. So like that's probably the issue.
Yeah, I had that and I clicked on it and then it just sent me back. But
That's so weird. Okay, I'm gonna move you to room 3 again. Actually, I'll move you to room 3. We'll see how it works. Good. Seems like you're there. Anybody else need help? Rebecca or B. Dent? Okay. 650. So if you are on the recording, you will now be able to see, hopefully, that there is some typing going on in the groups, except for group 1.
Sorry, I got kicked out of room 3 somehow.
Okay, Adam, I'll pop you into room
Thank
3.
you.
No worries. Off you go. All right. You guys have knocked it out. Let me see how much time we've got left. We've only got about 3 and a bit minutes. Which group were you? Okay, group 4. Excellent. All right. Yeah. So you had a lot of time on your hands, I guess. Seems like everybody else is still cooking though, so I'm going to give them their full time.
Where are you from, Susan?
Where did I grow up or where am I living now?
Where do you live now?
I'm in Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm also in Pittsburgh.
Is it?
I am.
Oh, well, my dentist is Dr. DeFusco.
Oh, he's
He's an old timer, I think.
He's an old
been around for a
timer.
minute. Yeah, he's been around for a minute. He's a good dentist.
He is. What part of the city is he in?
It's kind of like East Liberty-ish.
Okay.
Sort of in that area. I mean, the East Liberty post office is, or wait, like kind of Bloomfield. Anyway, in that general East side.
Uh-huh.
So, but they've also, it's quite clear, like last time I was there, the hygienist was telling me how much she's in demand. She can get whatever she wants. Like it was really clear to me what you guys are talking about, that hygienists are hard to find.
Yeah, it's for darn sure.
She's a good one, but
Actually,
yeah,
everything's hard to find.
Is it? Is it? Yeah. Is there any discussion sort of nationally of creating some sort of support role that doesn't require the amount of education that hygienists need to have?
No, but there's a lot of discussion about getting more hygienists.
Okay. How to increase the pipeline. Well, the rooms I realized are going to close automatically at 15 minutes. So they have a hard stop at 15. So they have about a minute left in their rooms. Have you been a dentist in Pittsburgh for your entire career, Michael, or not?
I was out east for the first 7 years, but I've been here for about 30 years.
Okay. And what brought you out here to begin with?
Well, this is where I'm from.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
Yeah.
a very good reason to be here. Yeah.
Yeah. We moved home.
Oh, okay. So you're in the house you grew up in? Or
No.
Oh, okay.
Not even in the same city. But my wife worked for General Electric, and they
Okay.
hated hiring people from Pittsburgh and Chicago. And we used to say, "Why is that?" And they said, "People from Pittsburgh and Chicago always move home." And we laughed and we're like, "No, sir." And then 3 years later, we moved home.
Yeah. Okay, I think everybody's gonna come back now. Okay, I got your message, Lauren. Appreciate you. Okay. Here come people.
I'll be popping on and off, but I
Okay.
just have to do a few things with her.
Totally understand. Okay. Welcome back, folks. So I'd love to hear how that felt for you. I saw a lot of note-taking happening. But again, we're thinking simultaneously about sort of what we're doing, but also like how easy is this for us to understand that we could actually bring this and do it ourselves with another group? Like, is this feel like you could say, okay, guys, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna make this make up a scenario in our own team. Is there anything that you feel needs further explanation? Was there anything that felt confusing about this exercise? Just tell me about your experience of it.
I just had a quick question or thought.
Yeah.
So like with strategic planning, I feel like the goals that come out of strategic planning are like bigger, broader, and like all-encompassing goals. When we're doing like strategic forecasting or scenario planning, like that exercise felt very focused and pointed on like one specific possibility. Is there a way to make this broader so that it can apply across the association more so than just like one specific area?
So I'm going to give it a shot, and if I don't answer your question, then come at me again. So there's any number. First off, you were in one quadrant, so you're about to hear what everybody else's quadrant was saying. So that'll help round out the picture of this particular set of vectors that we chose. Obviously, there's any number of vectors you can choose. And so what we were trying to do is kind of isolate ones that, you know, in the real world, we'd isolate ones that feel particularly important for whatever reason. And again, but there's no limit to how many you can do. I think that when we go through, you'll see that there are themes, or often I will say when I'm doing scenario planning exercises with people, there are themes that come up that are cross-cutting, and that feels like a broader thing. So for example, usually when I'm working with nonprofits and we do a scenario planning exercise, it seems like inevitably one of the themes that comes up is like, oh, in all of our quadrants, building more partnerships is a good idea. Maybe we should just build more partnerships, right? Like there is no quadrant in which that is a bad thing to do, right? So I think that you kind of start to see things that make sense across multiple scenarios in a way. So I'm guessing that partially answered your question, Craig, but feel free to come at me again.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions about doing this? How did it feel? Was it straightforward? Did it evoke anything?
Yeah, I think it was pretty straightforward. It was I like the idea of being in breakout rooms so we can work as a smaller group rather than a bigger group.
Uh-huh.
And it was a nice way of discussing ideas. So I thought it was a nice way to manage a big group online
Okay.
on Zoom.
So if this, to your point, like I was mentioning earlier, that it's very useful in scenario planning to have multiple perspectives in a room. We're picking this very simple and personal example so we can play with the tool. But if we were using a sort of an industry example, then we'd want to make sure that in each, I would have wanted to engineer the breakout groups to make sure that in each breakout room, I had someone who could speak to different aspects of the problem from their experience, right? So in that case, random breakouts would not have been as useful. But yeah, working in small groups is a really good way to have better discussion.
Yeah, so that makes sense because if you have 6 like-minded people, you're going to get 6 like-minded answers.
Exactly.
And without having any diversity as far as age and work experience, and relevant work experience, not just I did it for 2 years and now I'm doing something else, then they don't bring anything useful to the table. So you need to have relevant work experience for whatever you're trying to get to, and age.
Yeah, so those are two, I'm getting it. Thank you. Yeah, so those are two two perspectives that you're bringing up that you'd want to balance for. And there's many others, right? For example, I know that the rural workforce is a consideration. So you would probably want to get, if you were looking at industry, you might want to get a rural voice into this breakout, right? Just to make sure that rural voices are represented there, or whatever it might be, right? This is the thing that we're gonna want to engineer for.
Miss Susan?
Yeah.
I have a question. So, to ensure equal representation of voices in all the breakout rooms, but if we do that, you effectively dilute the minority.
It's
So
true.
then that's one question. But my other question is actually like, this is great, this helps. But the question is sometimes people can't even agree on the two variables. This is like really constructive because I'm like, oh, these are the two things, these are given, but then a lot of times people don't agree on the variables, so you can't have a neat breakdown of scenarios. But you see what I mean?
I do. Okay, so let me speak to both of your points there. One is the minority is diluted if you do. This isn't the only way. You don't have to do it in breakouts. You could do it or small groups. Depending on the size of your group, you could do it as a whole group. I say that a group this size, that would be awkward. Like that's a lot of voices in the room. But you can do it as a full group. And what we're going to do now is have everybody look at all the notes. And that's another opportunity when you come back from those groups to have everybody look, and then those minority voices or whatever can say, hey, but wait, you didn't think about this, right? So it's still possible to integrate feedback into the scenarios once the small groups have worked on them. That might be a way to check it. And to your second point, hopefully if you're doing this with a group, that kind of the slide where we were saying, what's the risk, what's the impact, what's the data, that will be a kind of a neutral way for you to identify what rises to the top. And again, there's no right or wrong as far as what you pick. There's not one best thing to look at, but that will help you identify together what feels most important. And then you just do those and you see how it works, right? I hope that helps a little bit. These are all good questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Okay. So if we're kind of feeling like we've talked that out, so you all had the experience of actually developing the scenarios, then I'm going to ask you to do just that. So take a look at the slides, at slides 7 through 10, and see what other people said. If you have any great big thoughts about what it would be like, so we're in one very literal quadrant, which is no baby, new job. I thought it was going to be no baby, no cry, but it was no baby, new job. And then we have new beginnings quadrant, we have controlled chaos quadrant, and then we have a lot of time on our hands quadrant. So take a look through those and see if it makes sense to you or if there's anything you'd sort of, again, this is a fairly fabricated scenario. So my guess is there is not going to be a lot of controversy, but this is what we would do, is kind of check it out.
So Susan, this may be getting ahead of things a little bit, but as I'm looking at this, it's like we've taken potential options or, there's only so many things that can happen under a certain set of circumstances. We've kind of analyzed each of those different scenarios and planned out what things would look like if that played out.
Yeah.
So I guess the end game then is to kind of strategize in accordance with which of these you think is the most likely outcome, or at least to some degree prepare for all those.
Okay.
Either are likely or so risky or high impact that you can't afford not to be prepared for it.
Yeah, it's a perfect segue. You're doing the right kind of thinking. So what do we do with this now is what you're saying. Okay, so how do we organize these thoughts that we've had? And one way that we can start is sort of described on slide 11. And so I did put sticky notes, sort of boxes on slide 11, and I'm inviting people to reflect as you're reading across these different slides. What do you see? Like I was saying, how typically in my nonprofits that they'll see something like partnership building, which makes sense across multiple. It doesn't have to be across all four, but if there's anything that makes sense across at least two quadrants in this scenario, then let's capture that. So if you see that, you can put it in a sticky note. What strategic choices do you see emerging as far as like what actually do people need to like if you're trying to prepare for any number of these scenarios, what kind of choices around money, around time, around anything else are you going to need to be toggling between as you get ready to figure out, am I going to have a baby? Am I going to get this new job? Right? These are the choices that you need to be thinking about. So I'm going to try and share again for the people who are watching this on their after it's done, that I'm going to share my Zoom's these slides.
So just a real quick question. So you're just looking for a consensus of commonality, and then you're looking for outliers.
Yeah.
Miss Susan, can I ask you another question?
Could the one person turn off your thank you? Nope, not yet. Somebody needs to mute. I'm getting an echo. Perfect. Okay, Adam, go ahead.
I think my question has to do, I don't know whether this is within the scope of the meeting today, but since you work with different nonprofit groups, do you see a difference between how ones with public interest organize and how they talk about these things versus how private interest groups talk about it? What I'm trying to say is kind of like, I would imagine a community volunteering oriented group might talk about things like this a little bit different than union members who have like a very specific private interest.
Mm-hmm.
Because I hear a lot of the terms you use is more about like coalition building, like cross-sectional, like making sure everyone's on the same page. But I think sometimes in this political environment, what I'm hearing a little bit is less about different dentists, at least talking about, oh, I wish other people knew about what I'm facing, more about like, we all know we have these frustrations. Why isn't anyone doing anything? So it's
Okay.
kind of less about the rainbows and unicorns. And I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
I'm going to try and restate your question because I want to make sure I understand it. So I think what I'm hearing is, we have as a alliance of dentists, we have shared concerns, but the rest of the world isn't hearing our concerns. And how does that impact? We don't have a lot of disagreement within dentists, but the rest of the world is not listening as hard as they could to our voice. And so how does that impact how we might do scenario planning? Am I getting you right?
Yeah, it's less so, perhaps my question is less so about coalition building,
Yeah.
or more about reaching consensus and moving forward. Perhaps the answer to the question is that this exercise is more to make sure everyone's on the same page so we know what direction we move, and less so about action.
No, I think that this is like what I'm imagining is that, again, the scenario planning tries to deal more than other types of planning with things that are absolutely outside of your control, right? So you have it's like the opinion of the outside world is outside of your control, right? So I think that that's still it's still an appropriate tool for this kind of exercise, or there's only so much you could do to influence. Even if dentists as a whole are relatively unified, like there's going to be things coming from the outside world that are outside of your ability to control. So that still feels relevant, but I don't know if I'm speaking exactly to what you are imagining.
Yeah, no, I think I just need to kind of wait and see where this goes.
Yeah. Okay. So let's take a look. I see that some people are writing into slide, whatever slide we're on, slide 11, that they're seeing some things across multiple quadrants. So it seems like there's There's the social network or the support network is important across at least a couple of quadrants. Time management, money management is something that deserves attention across. If you're going to try and prepare for an uncertain future where these things might happen, to be really solid around time management and money management, that's excellent. This is perfect, right? This is exactly the kind of solution that we would say, like, oh, wow. If we're facing uncertainties, we just know we're going to be better prepared if we're in really good shape with our money and if we really have a good control of our time. Like, these are things that will help us prepare for the uncertainties. And that's across multiple quadrants. So that's exactly the kind of thing that you can tease out from this sort of exercise. Wow, we should be doing this in any cases. But yeah, then on the other side, brilliant. You guys are doing this perfectly. These are the things that we need to toggle between. Like, this is a strategic choice, whether what we're going to do with our house, right? So that's a significant one. So that's perfect. You guys are doing exactly the right thing here. So I'll give you just another minute to think about if there's anything else that sort of belongs across multiple quadrants or what strategic choices emerge. And then there's, to your point, Ward, I think that this is one way to start to organize this information. You recognize there are things that you should, that are popping, and then there's things that are bigger choices. And then you will see down in slide number 12, so if people want to transition down to slide number 12, that I'm giving you 3 columns here. So what must you do? What won't you do, and what might you do? So in that case, we can start to organize this differently. So must-dos are across, like, we just recognize, like, let's say, again, this is a scenario about a family. So as a family, presumably we would say, we must get our finances in order, right? Someone can type that in there or whatever. Whatever you feel like. These are things we just have to do no matter what. Won't do could be something like, okay, so I'll give you an example from a group I worked with in the spring. They were getting some funding from the government, and they were worried that funding was going to stop in the scenario. And so what do we do? And what they said they would not do is sign a loyalty oath in order to get that money. They're like, as an organization, that is a line we are going to draw. We are not going to sign any oaths in order to keep that money. So it was really kind of helpful for them to sort of articulate where their lines in the sand were around, as an organization, this is something that we will not do even if it costs us that money. In that case, that was theirs, right? What won't you give up? So as a family, you might say something like, we're not going to ever move away from grandma and grandpa or something. I don't know, like we're not ever going to leave grandma and grandpa. If they're going to have to come with us if we get this new job or something along those lines. You have to say, what are we absolutely going to have to do? That's the kind of information that would go into the won't do category. And in the might do category, for example, these are things that people have put into the might do category, like we might get a dog, or we might, like, these are things that you could do if you had all that time or you had those disposable resources. Like, if you have, maybe $100,000 to invest to position you for the future, and you're not sure what that future is going to look like, you might decide you're going to invest it not across several smaller things as opposed to all of your money in one area. So it's a little bit more liquid or something along those lines. So that's something that you can keep back the liquidity of your money for when the world becomes clearer. So we might invest over here instead of that. This is a time to be thinking not only about external factors, but also internal factors. And we're doing that. So these are things that the finances, these sorts of things are things you can control. Actually, we're talking about things that are uncontrolled, that are coming at you. But some of these things are internal things that you can actually do, where you actually have agency. You actually can make things happen. So people are taking a look at that. And that's another way for you to harvest some of the insights that you have. So, I wanted to just mention, because I think, Adam, you have been talking about this. You've been thinking about how might we prepare our teams to do good thinking if we're going through this tool. And so you were mentioning, and another person was mentioning the trade-offs between small groups putting it and doing it all together. So bigger groups generally mean there's more diversity of perspectives, but there's reduced engagement, because with a larger group, people are going to be sharing less, right, for the time that you have. So it's easier for people to sort of sit on the sidelines and not share. So that's a trade-off that you have that you can be thinking about when you're bringing this to your group. Think about the size and what that trade-off would look for you. It also can be useful if you have a value statement or a mission statement that is values oriented. That can be really helpful because it can ground you in that when you're trying to make choices. And you can say, we already know what our highest priority is in any scenario. And when you're making difficult choices, that can be sort of a touchstone for you. I don't know exactly how that looks in the dentist area, but that can be useful for some groups. So we're kind of slicing and dicing a little bit about how we organize this information. I think, Ward, you were also talking about action, like how do we then move to action? And I think that's the next step. You can take a look at trends. You can take a look at cross-cutting things and big choices. You can take a look at your values. But another part of this, and I'm going to stop sharing here, and I'm going to go back to my slides for a little bit. Share. Okay, we're a little bit behind. Okay, so one of the ways that we can think about action is to be identifying triggers. We don't know how things are going to go, but as time goes on, it becomes clear which scenario we're getting closer to, right? As time goes on for this particular family, they're going to know whether they got that job or whether the child is on its way. And they need to take action accordingly. So trigger points are previously agreed thresholds that initiate action. And they could be internal. So it could be within your circle of control, or it could be outside of the circle of control. Like a hurricane is predicted. So this is going to be the trigger. Whether or not the hurricane comes, we see that a hurricane is predicted for this area, and this is going to be our trigger. The idea is that we're moving from a reaction into a response. We're trying to get as responsive as we can and not just reacting to everything. In order for triggers to be appropriate or for them to really work in scenario planning, they need to be analyzed and agreed upon in advance. So we need to determine what those trigger points are, and then we need to document what's happening in the world so we can see what we're getting close to. So you need to have a sense of what data you're going to be looking at to see if you're getting close to any of those triggers. So again, it's not so relevant to the scenario that we've been working on, but an internal trigger might be our budget drops below X amount or reduces by X%. And then the response plan will be who does what and when. And then you're going to monitor that, right? So to see how it's changing. And you have to determine, again, what information you're getting, where you're getting it from, and who's tracking it. So it's kind of like if you guys are doing strategic planning, this is the scenario planning version of the implementation plan, right? Once you've got those big goals, then you have to figure out what's the budget, who's doing what's the timeline, all that sort of stuff comes up in implementation planning when you're doing a strategic plan. So in the scenarios, it becomes for triggers. So let's take a look down at slide number 13. So I'm going to stop my share here and let you all go to slide 13. And that's going to be a place where we can identify some trigger points. So what do you imagine some trigger points would be in the scenario that we've been working with, right? You can just list them down. But it could be external trigger or an internal trigger, something that like would indicate we're heading in one direction or another. So you got that one. That's a great trigger. Again, like that's fine. We can continue to work with the scenario we've been working with, or just have a good trigger for your actual, industry, and that's totally acceptable. That's perfect. So I don't have any particular stake in either. So the baby in the family is getting sick. I could imagine we could say for a trigger point, like, we've gone 6 months and there's no baby on the way, right? Like that could be a trigger point. Like it doesn't look like this baby's coming anytime soon. So if the baby isn't coming anytime soon, then we can see that we're heading towards those quadrants that are non-baby quadrants. Or
the new job fell through.
Exactly.
And you were on your way to buy a new house for the new job, and the new job fell through, and now you're got 2 triggers because you're in between 2 houses.
Yep. And John, you're going to have to...
Yep, sorry.
Okay. All right, great. Yeah, so that's what we're talking about. As far as, and some of these, so I'm going to comment a little bit on some of the triggers that are popping up into this screen, because like get a better job offer for twice as much pay. I would say what we're looking at, that's almost like a different thing. Like I'm glad that you're thinking about this, because it gives us something good to talk about. You see that triggers are really going to be helping us see which of the quadrants that we were pointing to is looking more likely. So the baby gets hand, foot, and mouth disease doesn't really help us understand if we're heading towards one quadrant or the other. So the sort of trigger points we're really looking for is what's going to help us know which future we're headed towards. Yeah, I would say that in the scenario that we've been looking at, actually the promotion at the current job, that might make it mean that I'm not going to get that job out of state, right? Like that would be a trigger, but that's what we're trying to capture here. So, yeah, pregnancy test is positive. Really good trigger in this case. So if you're the family, that's the sort of thinking that you're doing around how is that going to work. And then what you need to do then is say, okay, if this is our trigger and we've agreed that if this happens, so I'm going to take an example from our page. So like if it turns out that that the cost of living is more expensive in the new location, actually, is that a good one? I feel like that's okay, fair enough. We can work with that. Cost of living is more expensive in the new location. So that's looking like the new job out of state might not be happening. It's pushing us towards the quadrants that are not moving out of state. Then we'll say, okay, that's our trigger. If we know that if we find that information, we realize that that's true, then we're going to do these things, right? We're going to buy the house or do whatever it is, right? So these are the sorts. Am I making sense? I feel like I'm being a little incoherent, but my guess is you guys are understanding what I'm saying here. Okay, I'm seeing.
I understood it better when you put it. We're looking at things that trigger one quadrant or the other becoming the more likely.
Yes, that's ultimately what we're trying to do.
Okay.
So and then once you've identified what those things are, then you just get a plan for like, how are we seeing? Like, when are we checking in to see if we're heading in this direction? Again, this is a very a scenario we're playing with that maybe doesn't have a lot of juice in that. But in an industry scenario, you would be like, okay, like these trends are showing up in our membership, right? Or these trends are showing up in our finances, or these trends are showing up in the external environment, like these are the things that we'd be watching for in the news, or seeing those things coming out from our industry leaders. So okay, so great. I'm going to go back to sharing my PowerPoint for a minute. Okay, so here we are. I wanted to just talk a little bit about other methods that people use for scenario planning. So this way of building different quadrants is, I think, a helpful way for this to work. There are other tools out there for scenario planning. This is an example of a tool that's put together by Bridgespan. And it focuses a little bit more on the financial aspects. So they still will do the identification of the vectors, and they will identify whether those vectors have high risk or not, just like we did in the beginning of our session here today. And then they will basically translate all of that into financial impact. And they will create 3 different financial scenarios, one that's a best possible financial scenario, one that's sort of in the middle, and then another one that's the worst. And they will sort of estimate how, that is going to be what they're working with is mostly financial scenarios. So that's another way to approach this. If that feels compelling, that is another way to do this. So there's also normative scenarios where you describe a preferred end state and you try to develop roadmaps to get there. It's a little bit more like strategic planning. But I didn't want you to think that this is the only way to do it. There are other ways to do scenario planning, just like there's business planning and strategic planning that focus on operations and finance a little bit more heavily, if that feels particularly relevant to you. So what I wanted to do, and we are doing good on time. So I am going to flip it back to you. And again, imagining that we are doing this with our teams, what do you feel you would need besides what we've done here to actually do this at home? Do you feel like you could do this? Do you have any questions about how you might bring scenario planning to your teams?
I was gonna say, like, I feel like picking a topic where there is a possible solution is the key. Because if you pick something that like there's never gonna be like a real solution, then you're just gonna be spinning your wheels. So kind of selecting the right one from the start to then focus on.
Talk to me a little bit more about that, Mitchell.
So like if you pick, I don't want to use the nuclear war example, for example.
No,
Like,
I
but
think
if
you should. Yeah.
something with that, like, are we really able to solve the issue?
See,
as
I think
Dennis?
that's perfect. I'm so glad you asked that question because I think this is exactly what scenario planning gets to, right? That scenario, like, let's imagine that we're not going to be, you're absolutely right. We are not going to be able to solve for nuclear war, but there are ways that people can prepare better and worse for that sort of thing, right? Like if there is going to be, again, like everybody's hoping that that's a very distant scenario. But if there was a crisis, like in the Ukraine, right? Like they're facing all sorts of, or any place in the Sudan, whatever, that there's places where there's incredible conflict and that you would never want to face. And there's ways that you need to get ready for that. So I feel like it is relevant in that scenario, in that case, Mitchell. Does that make sense, or does it still feel like no?
No, yeah, you're maybe not solving like the issue, you're just
Yeah,
preparing for it.
exactly. So that's the real difference. I mean, just to hammer that on that a little bit, like strategic planning is trying to kind of solve the issue, and scenario planning is we can't solve it, right? We just want to know what we should do if certain things are happening. Yeah, that's a great question.
I think it might be helpful.
Nick, and then John.
Okay.
So with establishing the axes, the X and Y axes, just staying consistent here, going back to that nuclear war thing, what would you make the axes in that?
So that's again, these are great questions because one of the things that I could talk about a little bit more is how you bound it, right? So let's say you could have an axis be high risk of nuclear war, or there's a nuclear strike somewhere, and the bottom of the axis could be like 0 nuclear strikes. But one of the things you can do when you identify a vector is say, what is the best and what is the worst? So for example, if I'm working with an organization that's saying like generally what they'll go to is like our funding is bad or our funding is good. I'm like, what does that mean? What's the top of your good and what's the bottom of your bad? You have no funding at all, or you have 30% of the funding you used to have. And what's at the top? You stay steady or you get $1 million grant, right? So it can be useful to, as a group, put a little bit of clarity on what's the worst and best that you can imagine happening. So that's one thing. And you might also, because this is helpful that you reminded me of this, it can also be useful to bound it in time. So that's one thing we could have done, that in this scenario that we were working on, that it was really within 1 year. We're really talking about a 1 calendar year. And that can be a useful way of sort of containing the scenario. What is going to be a trigger within 1 year? So those are some additional bounds that can help you focus the scenario well. It's a really good question. I hope that helped, but if it didn't, you should feel free to come off mute.
Yeah, thank you. That makes sense.
Okay, John, you also had a question.
It's not a question, it's a comment. Only because I've been part of many of these groups, like many of my colleagues that are on this call. And I agree with you in that I like these small breakout sessions, very much like going to arbitration where you get stuck into a room and you got to hammer something out. And then the arbitrator comes back. But that's the whole point of this, is if we do this in a large group, then the most dominant people will take over. The other people will be on the sideline because they feel like their voices aren't heard. So I like the small group and then coming into a large group. But my comment is that we need somebody specifically trained in order to do this, such as yourself. Like, I like what you're doing because that's your training. You can't rely on us to do this ourselves because we just don't have the training to do it. It'll be, again, for me, another round of spinning our wheels, I think somebody said. So if we're going to do this and enact this or take this on, then I would propose that we have a professional moderator or arbitrator or whatever you want to call leader help us with this process. So that's just my comment.
Well, the good news is I am going to help you. So we have it already set up where I'm going to help you guys walk through a scenario playing process. So I think I would say both Anne and Ward. I saw you unmuted for a minute. Did you want to chime in?
Yeah. Well, at least the plan for now, Dr. Polowitz, is that Susan's going to facilitate a session for the SFC, and the scenarios that they develop will then, because we can already have small group breakouts, if you will, they'll be handed over to the respective Sigma teams. And the Sigma teams really won't be doing scenario planning. They'll be doing the strategizing. Okay, here's the scenario, the likelihood, basically the trigger point, all that stuff as the SFC foresees it. Sigma teams, how do we strategize to prepare for that scenario if these things happen? So if you understand how they got there, which is what this exercise should help you with, you may be able to better figure out where you want to go with the strategy in the Sigma teams. But there will be facilitation for the committee, the Strategic Forecasting Committee, to develop those scenarios.
I'm just going to add on to that. I think that one of the things that you're making me think of is it's really useful to have someone from who doesn't have to be thinking about the content, who's only thinking about the process, right? So that's like, you don't want to have,
we need an outsider who's
an outsider
working on the process. Correct.
Yeah, so that's super, super useful. I totally agree with you there. That said, I want to say that I think it's both and. I think it is helpful, and I am obviously super glad to help you wherever you would like to be helped. But I do also think that it's possible for groups to work through these tools. I think that they're somewhat intuitive, and especially with smaller groups, it can be an interesting thought exercise. I don't think we need to kind of sell ourselves short that only an expert can help us work through some of these questions. So I would, encourage you to play around and see what's possible as well.
And to that, Susan, I would add on that it's kind of a work in progress. We may change again if as we see it going a different direction, involve Susan or a different, expert in different ways as this goes. But that much is planned out for the near term.
And what you'll have, like again, the second version, the second part of my contract will be actually like where it says for us to identify 2 key vectors, us to play this out and end up with the plan that has, okay, trigger points, right? And who's responsible for doing what if we see these things coming. So it will have, again, that sort of action planning attached on. And that'll be the outcome of that time. But
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, I feel there should be a sort of a decision tree in the thought process. What's the advantages, disadvantages? What could be the risks? What's the consequences? What if we go this way or that way? Because I feel like if we work in a group and if one person is more is leaning towards say X, and maybe the rest of the team may be influenced and may lean towards, the decision X, right? So I feel like a sort of like a decision tree may help in sort of determining what would be the best in the planning process.
Appreciate that.
So is there something like a decision tree, or it's always like a, an x-axis and a y, and then you come up with
Sorry.
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, that's all. Yeah.
It's a really interesting thought. I'd like to think about it more. Where I can imagine it right off the top of my head being really useful is if let's imagine that you get to like the trigger points and you say, if this happens, then here's what we're going to do. And if people are saying, but wait, should we really do that thing, right? Should we really, is that the right response? That maybe a decision tree could be really useful there. So I think that's really interesting, and I'd like to think about that more.
Susan, along those same lines, I think I heard somebody talk about a mission statement and goals. So I think that would be more along the lines heading towards a decision tree. If we have a mission statement of the Pennsylvania Dental Association and a list of goals, then we move as a body towards that mission statement and goals rather than having branches and fracturing off of a tree. I want to march everybody towards the same mission statement and set of goals, which is keeping organized dentistry healthy and alive and protecting our interests against the powers that are coming after us to rob us of our livelihood. That's my main goal. And I think that should be the goal of most people, is that we got into this profession because, one, we love to help and be healers, but we also want to make a living from it as well. So I would like to find out what that mission statement and the goals of the PDA are from the next meeting, and then maybe add that to this decision tree or whatever you want to call it. Again, just a comment.
Yeah, I would say I can't speak to where you are in that process, but I would say that having something like that, like we're all really clear that this is our intention, can be really helpful and kind of reground people when the decisions get really murky. But wait, we know we're for this. How does this advance this? Or how does this get in the way? That can be very useful. Are there any other questions about sort of what we did here, or things that made sense or didn't make sense? Just sort of the process. Well, any other questions? You all did so great. We might get out early. I'm sure they're. Okay. So, I don't know if you want to say anything more about timing of next steps or any other.
Only that, yeah, they'll be polling at the SFC to determine the specific date, but we're probably looking at January to do an actual planning exercise as opposed to this, which was but training.
Yeah, training for the scenario planning. And I would add that if you have like if you're interested in that Bridgespan tool that I was showing on my screen, and there's also some other resources that I have, just other scenario planning documents or like explanations of scenario planning. If this is something that would be helpful to you or have any questions that you want to ask, that I am available as part of my work with you, that I'm happy to ask or answer any questions that I can. So just write to me directly. I'm part of those emails that you got with the reminders, and so just feel free to reach out, and I'll do my best to help you if you are interested in taking this to your group or are trying to figure out why, or you just want to see some other information about it. But otherwise, I think if it's all right with you, then unless there's other business that you want to address here, that maybe I'll let you go 10 minutes early.